We've had so many discussions about who the Vikings quarterback should be in 2024, but not a lot about what we actually need from a quarterback. So let's go deep. It's Locked On Vikings.
You like that? 3, 1, 2, 3. You like it?
You are Locked On Vikings, your daily Minnesota Vikings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Locked On Vikings podcast, where we're always trying to learn something new. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And thank you so much for listening to this show every single day. My hashtag everydayers, those of you who do that, I love you all very, very much. I cannot wait to see what all of you become and grow into and grow with me. This is going to be an episode of growth, I think, for me. And I'm excited to muse on it with you. You can find this show wherever you find your favorite podcasts, including SiriusXM, where you can also find live broadcasts of any sports game, hometown broadcasts. So Wolves broadcast Wild Twins, which is coming up in a couple months, a few months. You can also find the show on YouTube or Amazon Fire and Roku. Just download the Locked On Minnesota Sports app. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off of your first purchase. So here's the rub. Almost a year ago, I went on a vacation and did not record podcasts for a week. So I pre-recorded a whole bunch of them. And if you are an everydayer, you remember this. I kind of went through what I had learned over the draft about scouting certain positions. And it was all the positions I really paid attention to and took time to watch, which last year was cornerback, wide receiver, a little bit of running back, a little bit of quarterback, like that kind of stuff. And the quarterback one, I can't bear to go watch anymore. It's kind of bad. Now, I have a principle of a 2-year rule with everything. If I don't look back on something that I was talking about that's 2 years old and cringe, if I don't look at 2-year-old stuff and go oh my God, I didn't know anything, I'm not learning enough. That's just the thing. I want to look back on things and be kind of ashamed of them, which is sort of, I guess, a curse because it means I don't like any of the work I've ever done. But that also means that I'm improving. And so if I look at something that's not even a year old and I'm starting to feel that way, wow, that means I must have learned a lot. And I have. I've been doing a series on quarterback play over at the Wide Left Substack. So go subscribe there if you want to read it. Kind of going over all the draft quarterbacks and not scouting reports, which you'll see 600 of before the draft, but rather kind of honing in on one facet of quarterback play and the mechanics of it and how it's supposed to be, using examples from Tom Brady and Peyton Manning. And this is how, their arm comes over their elbow and stuff like that. And I've talked about a little bit of it in the shows about these quarterbacks that I've done before. But instead of going and kind of digging up what I had to say about Jaden Daniels or Caleb Williams, which I'll do eventually, but I want to break it up a little bit. Let's just talk about quarterback and what we need from a quarterback. So I know I sold this a little bit Vikings specific, and sure, we can talk about how they care about rhythm and timing. They care about aggression, right? They don't want quarterbacks that are overly conservative, or they don't want quarterbacks that create their own problems and stuff. But also O'Connell showed a lot of willingness to tailor his offense around someone's skills. And that means that your options are pretty open. So instead, that's just look for kind of what makes a good one. And it doesn't have to be any more complex than that. I promise that is complex enough. So here's the kind of stuff that I guess I've been learning. And so this isn't going to be a comprehensive, here's how you scout a quarterback thing or anything like that. I think we can just sort of riff on this for a little while and talk about what makes us click, what I think at least is likely to lead to good quarterback play. And hopefully I'll look back at this in 2 years, and for whatever reason, I'll be like, what the heck was I thinking? And if you're still with me then, we get to learn from it. So I guess where my brain is at right now is very much, so I'm still on doing JJ McCarthy stuff. I'm working on the iteration of that series for JJ McCarthy, which I want to focus on the deep ball, because his deep ball is his worst ball, which means that gives us a really cool opportunity. And I know it makes me sound like a hater. But it gives us a really cool opportunity to see what happens when certain bits of it go wrong. So for that, I've kind of focused on stuff that guys are like bad at. Like I've sort of like Drake May, the way that his pocket presence works. I did this when I did the Drake May episode a little bit ago, but if you missed that, or if you just want a refresher, I learned a lot about what you want to see in the pocket. And I'm not just talking about, can they drop back and throw something on time and in rhythm, sort of a different skill set. That was the topic of my Jaden Daniels iteration of that, he's actually pretty good at that one, so I didn't really stick to the principle entirely. It doesn't matter. But I'm talking about when you are standing in the pocket, you're going through your progression, there's pressure, and can you evade it without breaking the pocket and turning it into a scramble drill? That particular skill set, right? Like this really hyper-focused, like niche part of quarterbacking that doesn't have anything to do with throwing, accuracy, mechanics, nothing in the mental part of the reads. It doesn't have to do with even protections, which is, I think it's kind of its own deal. I'm just talking about the footwork to evade pressure without breaking the pocket, right? And I think I dumped out like 1,200 words on that, like really diving in. And what I learned in trying to learn for myself, which is what 99% of my content is I learned something cool today. Here it is, what you're looking for is you want weight on the toes because you want to be very nimble, right? You want to be very... I don't want to use the word flexible because that also talks about like physical flexibility, like athletic flexibility. I'm not talking about that. You want to be opportunistic. Maybe that's what it is. Especially as you progress. The ideal pocket footwork to me is you take your drop back, and if you don't throw right at the top of your drop back, which is obviously ideal, but not always possible or a good idea, you want to have your feet aligned. So I'll say, draw a line from your back toe to your front toe, and then put an arrow at the end of that line, and that arrow should point at your target, right? So you want your feet to be aligned with that arrow pointing at whatever your first read is. And then you either throw that or you come off it. When you come off it and go to your second read, your feet should realign themselves so that you're ready to throw to your second target if you have it. What you don't want is for your eyes to get ahead of your feet, right? Or I think it was a Minnesota football party. We were just talking to Ron Johnson about this. Like your eyes should marry your feet. I think that's the way that he put it. Or they should be in sync, whatever, right? You don't want to start reading without your feet catching up. And that's actually something that happens to J.J. McCarthy. Has nothing to do with his deep ball thing, but when I say like it kind of feels like he's rushing his process, that's one of the bad things about that is that your eyes can look around, you can make a decision and say, ooh, I want to throw that, but you're not ready to throw it. So now you have to wait for your feet to kind of bounce their way over, catch up to where you're aligning, and then you can throw it, but it might be late. The window might be closed. What looked like a great throw might now be an interception, right? Like that kind of thing can make that big of an impact. So you want your weight on your toes because that makes it easier to bounce from kind of one alignment to the next alignment. And you want those alignments to be motivated. I use the word motivated because I have a film degree. Life is strange. Or you want it to be intentional. Maybe that's a better word. Intentional. You want your feet to be lined up here and you see exactly where they're lined up and why they are lined up that way. If you hear like happy feet or toesy quarterbacks, a lot of people use the word toesy to describe, I think it was Daniels or maybe it was Drake May. I'm getting it mixed up. It's in my notes somewhere. But if you hear a quarterback described as toesy, it's because they're just sort of bouncing all around. And there's not really any rhyme or reason to it. They're not specifically trying to bounce their way to one thing and then bounce their way to the other. You do want to jump to reset your feet, right? Which is why you want the feet on the balls of your toes so you can go up, reset, go down. But you don't want to just be kind of bouncing all the time because that turns into a cycle, right? You've got the cycle where your foot is directly on the ground. This is great. You can throw off of this, right? Cleats in the ground, start your wind up, let's go. But when you're up on the balls of your toes, to throw, you need to let your heels down. Now, if you're nice and calm, weight kind of distributed to the back of to the front of your feet, and you can kind of roll back on it whenever you need to, that's no big deal. But if you're up and down, well, what if you're up and you decide you want to throw right when you're up? You got to wait to come all the way down. That doesn't seem like much. Or if you decide you want to throw, but you're not aligned because you've bounced your way out of alignment, right? Now you got to wait to come back down, bounce your way back up, align that way, and wait to come back down. That's like 2 whole step cycles. And now you might be late to the throw. So it's a bad habit. The interesting thing about quarterback, though, and all of these little mechanical nuances, is that a bad habit doesn't necessarily mean a bad quarterback. It means here's something you can do to potentially be more consistent, but really it's a means to an end, and ultimately it's the result that matters here, right? So it's if you bounce in your toesy all the time, but you're never late to a throw, that might be okay. Like that might not be something that anybody really cares about fixing. But if you're late to a throw all the time, the first thing I'm going to look at is, are you bouncy? Because that's going to make you late. There's a couple other things that I want to get into. This is going to be this kind of show, so I hope you guys enjoy. But I want to talk about, I want to try something with the deep ball deal too. So yeah, we'll get into that. Today's episode is brought to you by Robinhood. Did you know that even if you have a 401k for retirement, you can still have an IRA? Robinhood has the only IRA that gives you a 3% boost on every dollar you contribute when you subscribe to Robinhood Gold. But get this, now through April 30th, Robinhood is even boosting every single dollar you transfer in from other retirement accounts with a 3% match. That's right, no cap on the 3% match. Robinhood Gold gets you the most for your retirement thanks to their IRA with a 3% match. This offer is good through April 30th. Get started at robinhood.com/boost. Subscription fees apply. And for some legal info, claim as of Q1 2024 validated by Radius Global Market Research. Today's episode is also brought to you by Gametime, which is the best place to find last-minute tickets. Here is the crazy thing. If you are looking for a ticket to that old football game in Vegas, if you want to see some Chiefs-Niners, you can get $100 off if you find one on Gametime. They've got killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and the best price guarantee. That means that you will always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row somewhere else for less, Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. So that's their challenge to you. You can do zone deals where you pick the section and Gametime picks the seats, and exclusive flash deals and sponsored deals to find prices you ain't going to find anywhere else. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Right now, all Gametime users get $100 off of a big game ticket with code VEGAS100. Terms apply. Just download the Gametime app and use code VEGAS100 for $100 off a big game ticket. Or if you're not going to the game, you can use code LOCKEDON for $20 off of your first purchase on whatever else. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Thank you so much for making Locked On Vikings your first listen of the day. If you want to see some of these principles in action, head on over to patreon.com/LukeBraunNFL. Watch some of the videos breakdowns there. They are all free to watch. And if you join, you're going to be able to get access to what I do with the defensive linemen and cornerbacks and stuff that I'll watch later on in draft season. Also, check out Locked On Sports Today. They have a 24/7 live stream of all sports content. So go check out that live feed. It's kind of the first of its kind on the internet, like a national sports 24/7 all the time going on, and with the variety of the Locked On network. Super sick. Okay, back to the nitty gritty. So the next thing I guess I want to go over is the mechanics of a deep ball. And I'm kind of just getting this aligned in my brain before I write an article about it. So we're kind of seeing the man behind the curtain. But there's all these little best practices, I guess, that are proper for a throw. Or maybe I should start with the actual biomechanics of a throw, which I talked about with Michael Penix, I think way earlier on this show, 2 weeks or 3 weeks ago. And I also already did that article on that Patreon and everything too. But what you're looking for a certain amount of torque, right? And this is just the physics and the kinetics of football, right? You're looking to twist your body up. You're looking to step into it. I'll go into it in a lot more detail on that other show. So go seek that out if you want it. But to keep it brief, you're looking to generate a lot of twist with your body and your abdomen in particular. And essentially, if you twist your abdomen up, if you try to twist your abdomen without your shoulders coming with, you'll feel a tension. And then you can take advantage of that tension by your shoulders kind of untwisting like a rubber band and then throwing the ball, right? And then you kind of want your elbow to come through and you want your arm to come through. But there's all these little other nuances and stuff that I think are really neat to know and learn about, even though all of this stuff is kind of trivial on its own. You got a problem with 17 of these things, you got a problem, but on its own, there's much more important things to know about quarterback. Like if you were going to start coaching quarterbacks at the high school level, everybody is like going to beg you not to get inundated in this stuff. I'm just geeking out, so I'm going to, and I don't coach any quarterbacks, so we're in the clear. But like quarterback coaches will say like, don't over focus on this like mechanical stuff, focus on reads, focus on getting guys up to speed, focus on just being comfortable in general and all that stuff. And it's like coaching is really hard, man. Like it's crazy how much stuff there is to fill your brain with and to know and then impart to someone. And most of it, like you got to do in one sentence where you're just, the next rep is coming and you just have to like go. And that is the true challenge of it. And in talking to people that do this, they all tell me like, don't get too bogged down in this. It's not actually what matters. But I'm not going to listen to them. I'm going to get bogged down in it because I think it's cool. Stuff like if you're holding the ball, you want to see your hand have like a C shape to it rather than a U shape to it. You don't want your ball to get like wristy where the ball will kind of fall down and your wrist bends backwards. And then as you throw, it's almost like having like a limp, like throwing a limp fish or something like that. Or trying to throw a golf ball by putting it in a fish's mouth and then throwing it that way. You're just going to lose a lot of control. So you want that to see the C. And that is this really cool thing. You can go Google image your favorite quarterback and see if they have a C or a U. And you know what? I bet you'll find some really good quarterbacks that have a U because this thing isn't the biggest deal in the world. But if you have a C, you'd be like, oh, okay, that's stiff, right? And for those of you that like other sports, baseball, you don't want to necessarily be like super wristy for the same reason. Same with golf and anything else that requires you to use your arms to generate a forward power on an object. You want those arms to be very stable tools, essentially. You just want them to be conduits through which that like rotational motion can come through. And that goes into a whole bunch of other things about when you do your windup, how low should the ball come? I guess rule of thumb is above the belt. So that's a thing to look for. And I've sort of gotten in super distracted trying to do other work where I just start like looking at quarterback plays and getting super jazzed if I can figure out why that miss happened. Like that's the world of this. It's just super fun. Like even if it doesn't like matter, or maybe I'm even wrong, but that gives me a chance to learn, right? Especially with this draft where I'm sort of folding that into evaluations. I talked the other day about JJ McCarthy and how I think he's really good at a lot of these little things. Like for example, footwork in the pocket, the stuff I talked about earlier. If he's aligned one way, he bounces to the next thing, It's all very intentional. There's not a lot of wasted motion. If he has to evade pressure, he has the short, choppy steps that you want, that we talked about with Drake May not really having. It's with Drake May, he will cross his feet over himself all the time. He will take way larger steps. He'll do all kinds of things that make him cover more ground than he necessarily wants to. And then he's ruined an O-line angle, and now he's in a scramble drill. And it looks really cool because then he scrambles around, he finds a cool play, but it's like you made that way harder on yourself than you had to. JJ McCarthy does not share that trait. And I've actually seen a couple people put McCarthy over Drake May. I don't think I'm there, but I do get it. And so part of the reason that I ended up higher on McCarthy than I think most are was that he's really good at all of those little things. He's very consistent at all of that. He's got the C. He has the right posture. He has like, even on the deep balls that are bad, I spent like 3 days trying to figure out why, and it stumped me and I couldn't. And then I got like super fixed on it and like forgot to shave for a week. Like I don't know. I like lost myself in it, and I figured it out today, I think. And I'm going to tell you what it is. Cause I just can't stop myself. But if you want to know more about what I learned about deep ball throwing, which is a ton, go read the Wide Left article when it comes out. It'll be out, I don't know, next week or the week after, something like that. I want to get it out before something happens with Kirk, which we're starting to get to like the time where that might be expected. So I want to try to get that out soon. But in the meantime, I'm going to tell you what I think I found. Let me know what you think. All right. That's going to be next. Today's episode of Locked On Vikings is brought to you by Nissan. And if you're the kind of driver that likes to push things a little further, our friends at Nissan have a lineup of SUVs with capabilities to take your adventure to the next level. How about the Nissan Rogue, which is perfect for both city drives and great escapes? It has all kinds of class-exclusive Google stuff built in, so it can be your constantly updating assistant to whatever your adventure is. You don't have to connect your phone or fiddle around with Bluetooth, which can be especially annoying if something like breaks and you're in the middle of the road and you got to like pull over to fix it and stuff. How about just Google Assistants, Google Maps, Google Play Store, all just built right into the car with a 12.3-inch HD touchscreen infotainment system. It's the perfect midsize crossover for your next adventure. Or how about the Nissan Armada, which will change what you expect from a full-size SUV. It can seat up to 8 in a rugged 4x4 in first-class luxury and style. Tow bigger and explore further in the 2024 Armada. Take the Rogue, the Armada, or the Nissan Pathfinder and go find your next big adventure. Shop NissanUSA.com. Today's episode is also brought to you by PrizePicks. This is actually the last time that I'm going to talk to you before the big game, so I want to see your PrizePicks. We did PrizePicks all year long, so PrizePicks for me is my favorite one of these to talk about, and I want to see what you guys have. So my brain has gone to a completely different direction, but I want to see what you guys do. So send me, take a screenshot or type them up, your PrizePicks on Twitter at LukeBraunNFL or LockedOnVikingsPodcast@gmail.com. And to get you started, if Patrick Mahomes throws for more than 1 yard, you win on PrizePicks. They got that promo going on right now. So make sure you go take advantage of that. It's a free entry that can be a part of the whole pile of entries. It's daily fantasy made easy. So instead of putting together a giant lineup and entering a pool of 600,000 people, you just pick 2 to 6 of your favorite players, and whether they do better or worse than their PrizePicks projection, everything from receiving yards and touchdowns to fantasy points or what have you. So go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. Don't forget, if Patrick Mahomes throws for more than 1 yard in the big game, you win on PrizePicks. I'm taking the more than there. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. So there's all these different like facets of the deep ball that I think are really interesting. Like when you just talk about a regular throw and all of the different torque things that you need and all of the different biomechanics, that's sort of the base. And then when you think about throwing it deep, what changes, right? And one of the things that you can maybe look for that you will see a lot, I would say, in younger quarterbacks, like before college, right? Like high school quarterbacks or even like kids that are trying to learn how to throw, is they will sort of swim their arm out to try to get their arm torqued around or to like help get their shoulders around, right? Which is actually not that bad of a habit if it's like a kid kind of learning how to do this for the first time. You can kind of work with that. But for a college quarterback or for a pro quarterback, you hope that you've optimized that a little bit, right? Because throwing your arm all the way around, that's literally the longest path your arm has to go around. Instead, what you want is a little chicken wing where your elbow will kind of come up, your front elbow will come up, or just like a nice kind of loose, relaxed elbow lift. And then you want it to kind of come down as though you're elbowing somebody behind you, or like you're putting a seatbelt on or something like that would maybe be a way to put it. And that will give you that same kind of herky-jerky shoulder motion, which is what you're going for, without a big, long, lopey arm thing. It's especially important to do that when you are throwing a deep ball. You kind of want it on all the throws, but on a deep ball, you want that because that will generate a little bit of extra power. But the thing about a deep ball is that that thing probably isn't going to go on a rope, like if you were throwing a slant or an in or something that requires a little bit more velocity, right? You want air on that thing. You want touch on that thing. And what we talked about on Wednesday with JJ McCarthy was that whenever there's air on it, that's when the worst things happen. So I went through all these different things about the deep ball and what angle your shoulders have to be. And, how you want to step into that. And if you want to kind of come through it taller, then you want to come like pushing it forward, right? Because you want to get that lofty, fluttery air on it. And here's the real concern for me is if everything looks perfect and you're still missing, you might just not have a great sense for how much mustard to put on these, right? And just like how to place these balls. And that's more of a mental thing and like a spatial awareness thing that can be an issue. That can totally be the issue and there's no way to see it. And that's a much harder thing to fix. So that was the worry. Or I just suck. That's the other worry. I just can't figure it out because I'm not good enough at this, which is really the answer I didn't want, right? So maybe I still suck and maybe I just kind of clung on to the only answer that looked even remotely close, but I'm still going to tell it to you and there's nothing you can do about it. So when you line up your feet, I want you to line up your feet as though you're going to throw, or just put them on the ground kind of like next to each other so you can see this, all right? And look at your feet. Draw a little dotted line through your feet, right? From your back foot to your front foot, like what the arrow would be, like we talked about before. And then think about 6 to 9 maybe inches from your toe and 6 to 9 inches from your heel. I want another line. And you've basically drawn a road, right? You have a little dotted line and 2 other lines. Like think about that in your head. You've drawn a road. So when you step into your throw, your back foot is where most of your weight is, and it's going to be right in the middle of that road, just like dead centered on the dotted line in the middle of the road. And then when you step forward with that other foot, first off, that foot should shift 90 degrees. So your toe is now pointed directly at that target, right? That's part of it. And that's going to open up your hips and cause your hips to kind of torque away. It's also going to get your whole lower half kind of out of the way, right? It's going to open all that up so that you aren't trying to throw across your body or twist yourself up any more than you want to. You want to be untwisted. You want the ball to be out and for you to be basically standing like feet shoulder width apart, straight up in a very comfortable position. And if you're not following through into a comfortable position, how that is uncomfortable, if you're losing your balance, if your arm isn't coming through all the way, if your leg isn't coming through the right way, if you're stepping too far forward with something, if you're twisted the wrong way by the time you go, it can tell you a lot about what's going wrong with that throw or how you can improve your throw. So with McCarthy, when he does it, he'll take that lead step where he steps forward and his front foot sort of turns 90 degrees, or that part, honestly, that part isn't the most important. Like you can get away with it if you have flexible enough hips, which he does for sure. You can see it on play action and stuff where you have to like really turn your hips. But when he does that, his back leg swings way out. And he looks like a little kid trying to stand on a stone in a river, and he's like, gotta get his balance with his legs swinging way out. Happens on every single throw. That's not proper, right? That's not what it looks like when the best quarterbacks do it, the most polished quarterbacks do it. I always go back to Kirk Cousins and Dak Prescott, who I think are mechanically very, very sound. But if you don't want to look, if you don't like respect those quarterbacks or whatever, which goodness gracious, a lot of you people don't, that's fine. That's fair. Watch the GOAT, Tom Brady. Watch Peyton Manning, right? They had to throw, like Tom Brady is pretty much a good example for like anything you want to know in this particular field. And you'll see that their foot kind of lifts off a little bit. I described it to somebody today as like, you remember the scene in Hitch? I think it was in Hitch when they said if a girl really likes a kiss, their leg will come off the ground just a little bit. Like, like the first kiss from Prince Charming, their back leg will come up a little bit. That's kind of what you're looking for. I know that's weird, but I promise you're never going to forget what that is now, right? Because I gave you the weirdest metaphor. You're never going to forget it. I know you're never going to forget it. So you want it to come off the ground like a little nice, like you just got a nice kiss from Prince Charming, not swinging all the way around like you're trying to catch your balance on a balance beam, right? So I'm thinking, man, his balance is going off, and that's why he's swinging that out. And then I looked a little bit closer, and I thought, why would his balance go out? And I even like got up and like tried it myself, and I'm like, what would this be? And here's what I think. All right, now remember the road in your feet. When you take that first lead foot step, you don't want your step to be aligned with that center line anymore. You want it to be in the left lane of the road. You want it to just go off to the left a little bit. Again, you're trying to open everything up because you want it out of your way. If you're throwing across your body, I mean, there's a reason that's a cliche not to do, and that's more of a thing on the run, which is, again, a whole different discussion. And I did discuss it in the wide left piece about Caleb Williams and scramble rules, if you want to do that. But in general, you don't want to be twisting yourself back up because that's going to lose you control, right? That is going to basically just put parts of your own body in your own way. You're going to lose power. You're going to lose control in a very subtle way. This is a very small difference. This is moving your foot 4 inches further to the left when you step into throws. Like, it's not that different of a thing. So on short game, it's not really going to come up. On quick stuff, when you're trying to do velocity, it's not really going to come up. But on the deep ball, everything is exacerbated so much more because being 1 degree off on your angle is going to have 60 yards to really diverge from where you want that ball to have gone. Hence, struggles with the deep ball. I think I figured him out. I don't know. Let me know what you think. If there are any like super quarterback coaches or gurus out there that are listening, let me know how I did here, because I'm like super fixated on this right now, and I want to be a sponge. And hopefully I'll have this same episode in 2 years going, oh my God, I learned so much new stuff. Don't listen to old Luke. Old Luke was an idiot. And that is the principle, okay? Old Luke, always an idiot. And I think you should stick to that too. If you do, you'll learn a lot. And it's kind of the thesis of the show. If you don't like learning, I don't know what you're here for. So I will talk to you guys all on the other side of the big old championship football game. There's a big one on. I don't know if you knew about it. On Sunday. Should be pretty fun. Enjoy yourselves. I'll see y'all Monday. And as always, Skull.